Okay, so before we kick off the event, we're going to kick off the event with a special performance by Dregs One. So Dregs One is an MC, producer, student, community worker. He's putting his time out working with homeless youth, with lots of different low-income communities, and he has a passion for justice and for independent music and speaking truth to power. So please welcome Dregs One.
Hello everybody. Hola. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? I don't even speak Spanish. But it's late to be here. My name is Dregs One. I'm born and raised in San Francisco. Just to get a quick introduction before I spit this a cappella piece. My name is Dregs. If you know who knows what that word means? The bottom. The worst, the rejects, the worst part of something. I started that name as a graffiti name, writing it in defiance all over the city. And then when I found out what it was, I'm like, oh, I've been calling myself the worst part of something. But then I realized that the worst, the people on the bottom is who I represent for. And the one at the end, that's a graffiti thing, but I flipped that because soon all the people at the bottom will become one and rise up. And we have power in unity. So with that being said, this is for the revolutionaries. Whether true and living or dead and buried, the legacy we carry, like Fred Hampton. Murdered by inglorious bastards, George Jackson rather die than be captured. Che Guevara, a victim of manslaughter. Martin Luther King sacrificed for a better tomorrow. Tupac was a martyr. From beyond the grave to this industry slaves, he rhymes harder, many more. Fought in the war. Power to the people and the poor. The pen more mighty than the sword. But son picked up a gun and I still got love for the ones in the struggle that never shed blood. Organizers and providers who live life trying to change the vicious cycle that perpetuates inside us. Artists and educators, protesters and demonstrators, liberators for a free mind. Gangsters in the pen turn their life around while doing time. And the ones who wouldn't be confined to the life of modern day slavery. Like Mother Teresa giving to charity. Or just taking time to give a dime to the homeless. Hope to the hopeless. Dedicated to change and never losing focus. Even if you're just trying to bring a change in yourself, I'ma notice if no one else. That's what's up, y'all. Holler if you hear me. Because on our own way, we all revolutionaries. Word up. So I got a little more time. How we doing?
CCMC.
Go ahead. Okay. So my specialty, hope y'all enjoyed that. That was a song called Revolutionaries. Check it out on YouTube. There's a video for it that might inspire you. My specialty is just doing stuff improvised off the top of the head, freestyle. There's no beat. So I need y'all to help me out and just clap your hands real quick. There we go. Keep it on. So this is all unrehearsed. This is all just stuff I made up. Used to write it on the walls. Got my grades up, working hard. But the system had me listening. I was thinking, is it for me or to trick me? Cause it's trickery. See the devil, he lives inside us. I'm providing no violence, non-violence. I'm about that. What you got, black? Black man, brown man, white man, Chinese, Filipino, African, don't matter, still keep clapping hands, speed it up, just a little bit. How good? It's ridiculous how I come so sick off the top of the dome. San Francisco, the place I call home, even though they don't want me here. Gentrification made that clear. Do you feel me on that? Let me keep them hands clapped. This is about revolution, restitution of institutions that influence young students to question rulers. What's the authority for the minority? Man, we all so poor we can't breathe. They're about to start charging for oxygen and I can't believe. GMO foods break all the rules. After corporations and F you too. If you disagree with me and agree with them, then you part of the problem, my friend. Free everybody locked in the pen. Let it Peltier when we at Abdul Jamal. Everybody in juvenile hall. All the young brothers, all the young sisters. Listen up, man, because I'm not done, Mr. Obama. Wanna bomb ya. Osama. That's drama. Cross the water. Atlantic. Pacific. The resistance lives in me. It's in you. And makes noise if that's true. Yeah. All right, so that's my time. My name is Dregs One, D-R-E-G-S-O-N-E. Look me up online. Thank you to James Tracy for bringing me here. Thank you to everybody that is part of this event. Salute to Mr. Fletcher. Congratulations on the book and everything. And thank you for all being here. I love you all. Peace.
All right. Let's give it up for Dregs One. So if you like what you just heard, I heard that he'll be performing at Slim's on the 16th, so you can check it out that night. So welcome everyone to Labor at the Crossroads. We kicked it off with some good, powerful culture, and sorry, stand in front. Just want to welcome everyone to the space. This is the Bayanihan Community Center, and tonight we are really excited to have Bill Fletcher here to share some of his thoughts with us about the state of the crisis that we face and the opportunities we face to reinvent what it means to build a real labor movement in this country. And he's joined by a panel of community organizers and activists in San Francisco that represent just some highlights of the amazing organizing and innovative strategies that are being tried out right here in our city. I wanted to make a note that we are in a moment when a week when there's a lot going on in the world that shapes what happens to workers and what's happening with our labor movement. You know, the Fair Minimum Wage Act was introduced this week to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. Yeah, give it up. And to also raise the tip minimum wage, which in many states outside California is as low as $2.13 an hour. On this day, today, the California Domestic Workers Coalition relaunched their campaign to win a what? Bill of Rights. A message for Bill of Rights. To really transform, right, the ways that certain groups of workers and communities have been excluded from the right to organize and excluded from benefiting from the fruits of their labor. So I want to introduce everyone to Job with Justice really briefly. Who here is a member of an organization or part of the activist committee of Job with Justice? Can I see a show of hands? All right. Give it up for yourselves. So who here is somebody who cares about the state of workers and the state of our society and wants to see positive social change? All right. So give it up for yourselves, all of you being out here tonight. So, you know, because we're not territorial like that, you don't have to remember Job with Justice, right? To care, though we hope you will join, and we'll talk about that later. So we here tonight are going to be sharing a little bit more. I wanted to say what Job with Justice is for those who may not be as familiar. We are a long-term and strategic alliance of labor, community, faith, and student organizations in San Francisco who are coming together to find ways that we can bridge old divides that keep our movements from being able to build the power we need to build from the ground on up to transform the systems that are holding our brothers and sisters and ourselves from being able to fully realize our rights as human beings, as workers, and as members of healthy communities. And that's what Job with Justice is about. We're working on campaigns. We worked on campaigns for safe and healthy economic development. Some good developments around the CPMC battle that's been happening this week, right? Some of the fruits of the work that the coalition has been working on. We've worked on community issues, including wage theft campaign. We've worked. And I wanted to quickly give a shout out and a thank you to the event co-sponsors for tonight, including the California Faculty Association at San Francisco State University, Unite Here Local 2, AFT 2121, the San Francisco Labor Council, the Labor and Community Studies Department of City College, the Center for Political Education. So let's give it up for our event co-sponsors tonight. So just a reminder that there were index cards that were passed around. That's just to give folks a way to kind of jot down any thoughts or questions you have as the event is going on. And you can either pass them over to Kung later on, or you can just hold on to them and we'll be passing a mic for a quick Q&A at the end of the event. So right now, before we turn it over to the folks you really want to hear from, I wanted just to take a moment to look around you in this room. This is a pretty awesome site, and there are probably a lot of familiar faces that folks are seeing and also some new faces. Just take a moment to see who's here in the room And there's also, as you're looking around, you'll notice there are some chairs that don't have bodies in them yet, and so folks who are standing in the back are welcome to come find a seat. Please, and there's even a chair over here, so there's room, come on, sit down. And so I wanted also to take a moment, if folks can look around them and see if there's someone that you don't know who's sitting near you, let's just take a moment to greet your neighbor, say hello, introduce yourself, maybe share like what you're excited or interested about, what brought you here tonight. Take a minute, introduce yourself. Wait for the panel and then I have time to talk. So if I can just draw everyone's attention back, back, back. This is awesome. Keep building, keep talking. We're just not this right for this moment because this is what you really came here for. Not to hear from me, but to hear my comrade James Tracy introduce our special guest speaker for the night. So, please give it up for James Tracy.
Now, I've been doing organizing since I was 17, and I have one really good way of knowing whether an event is good or not. It's if I look around the room and I see veterans and old friends like Bill Shields and Craig Hart and Roxanne Dunbar-Ortiz, and then I look out and I see a whole bunch of people that I don't even know, right? That means that we have a potential of actually building a movement, of actually building that interracial movement of the poor and the working class that so many people have laid down their lives to try to build, that we might actually be able to do it, and we might actually be able to start here tonight. So by way of introducing Bill Fletcher Jr., I want to kind of contrast what's happened locally here in the past 2 weeks and what's happened nationally in the past 2 weeks. Locally, the Chinese Progressive Association has won a major victory around wage theft, right? We give it up for Chinese Progressive Association. Jobs for Justice and many, many other people have built a powerful community labor alliance and pushed back Sutter CPMC from the brink of breaking our city's healthcare system and busting unions. When you read about this victory in the newspapers, they are going to say that it was the Board of Supervisors, it was the mayor, right? And you know what? Some of them did actually good things that were positive and sacrificed a lot of times and took risks, but it was everyday people in this room that spoke at the rallies, that moved their communities, that walked precincts with one another, like my friend Lisa Cleese over there. So we have done a lot here on the local. Oh, and right down the street, an Ellis Act eviction was prevented by the San Francisco Community Land Trust. Not only defeated an eviction, but put the housing into the hands of the people, right? Into cooperative control of working class people. And these are all wonderful local victories. Then we look at the national and international situation. We have sequester, the possibility of nuclear war. We have privatization. We have Obama saying that he's going to appoint the head of Walmart to be his budget czar, right? That ain't right. So if we ever get to the point where we are able to transform these wonderful, meaningful, powerful victories that we see on the local level, that we see in cities, not just in San Francisco, but our comrades all around the country, I believe that it is going to be because of the work of many people, but especially Bill Fletcher Jr. has left his fingerprints on this movement, challenging us to not think of race and gender as planets that we're going to one day be able to visit, right? But thinking about the issues that are front and center in our fight of organizing working class people, organizing the mass, and eventually changing the hearts and minds of all of humanity. Bill Fletcher wrote this fantastic book called Solidarity Divided that I think should be a textbook for people in struggle, right? And in struggle, it doesn't mean that you always have to agree with everything, but you struggle with these very powerful and wonderful ideas. And he has a new book just out on Beacon Press called They Are Bankrupting Us, and 20 other myths about unions. He probably could have made it 200 myths, but you know, there's only so many trees that we can cut down for literature. So please put your hands together for one of the labor movement's heroes, activists, intellectuals, public intellectuals, organizers, our good friend Bill Fletcher Jr.
Is this working? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I have to begin by saying I'm very overwhelmed. I'm like overwhelmed by the turnout, but I'm also overwhelmed by this feeling I have when I'm in California, which I always say to my wife, I feel more at home when I'm in California than I do when I'm in Maryland or D.C., which means get me a job. So I'm really glad to see a lot of old friends. And when I say old friends, there's two people here that I've known for 40 years, Professor Farrar and Professor Pitts. And it's just, and I'm very honored that they're both here this evening, and I'm honored that everyone else is joined with me this evening for this discussion, so thank you. I've written out some things that I wanted to say tonight, and then I realized that it's actually going to be too much. And I don't want to keep people here till midnight. So I want to do a couple of things. I want to talk about the moment, and then I want to talk about this question of do we as labor have a future? And first, let me just start with the moment, because there's very little discussion about this in most of our unions at the level, at the global level. Everyone knows that we face a global crisis, but it's often difficult to put to words precisely why. And the thing is that it's not just that we're facing an economic crisis. It's not just that we're facing an environmental crisis. We're facing both of these crises in addition to a third one. And the third is the crisis of the legitimacy of government. That these three crises are coming together on a global scale, and they're playing themselves out in ways that most of us could not have expected. We have an economic crisis that is a combination of a crisis, a general crisis of capitalist overproduction and overaccumulation, linked with a fiscal crisis that's accelerated the tragedy behind this one. We have an environmental crisis that calls into question the basic survival of humanity and many other species. But then we have this other crisis that receives very little attention, and it's a crisis of the legitimacy of government. Now, you may not think about it like that, but everyone probably knows precisely what I'm talking about. That there's greater and greater, in the United States and elsewhere, this question that's raised in the minds of many people as to why government? And is this government really looking out for us? And do we need government? And in fact, do we need to protect ourselves? And these questions are largely, in the United States and Western Europe, coming from the right wing. They're coming from forces that are basically saying that government has acted to steal from those who are the deserving populations and to give to the undeserving. And that as a result, the deserving need to start to protect themselves. They need to protect themselves legally by tax issues or guarded and gated communities, but they need to protect themselves in a very different way, which is a redefinition of who the deserving and the legitimate populations are. I mean, it actually gets quite dangerous, because when you hear the rhetoric that comes out of the right in the United States, in Italy, in Greece, in any number of places, it all is moving in a very similar way. And the idea being that there's segments of the population that are not simply economically redundant, but are physically redundant. That they are not necessary and they need to be eliminated because they represent a threat to the deserving populations. And when you have a situation like that, that is linked with this incredible fight over resources, this is what makes the intensity of the crisis that we're currently facing. And unfortunately, we have a labor movement that doesn't want to talk very directly about this and about the ramifications. Now, last week, the AFL-CIO Executive Council, let me apologize for speaking quickly because we're translating. And I'm a New Yorker, and so when I get going. The AFL-CIO Executive Council met in Florida and came to this very remarkable conclusion, which is that we're in trouble. And I'm really glad that they spent that time studying this matter and arriving at that conclusion. I feel very hopeful now. And then they said, we're going to open up discussion about what needs to be done. And I want to believe, I really do, I want to believe that that is in fact what's going to happen. But the problem is that regularly when organized labor says that, they want to open up the discussions actually, but so far. They don't want to ask themselves some very serious questions. Let me just give you an example of what I mean. The historical moment that we're in, as much as it's compared with the 1930s and people talk about a New Deal and everything, there's one very dramatic difference that we face today that was not faced in the 1930s, which is that there's no significant segment of capital that is at all interested in coming to some sort of peace with the working class. This is a very, I mean, you got to think back in the 1930s, as difficult as it was, the rise of fascism in Europe and Japan, the attempt, the discussion of a coup d'etat against Roosevelt in the mid-1930s, even with that, there were segments of capital that recognized that they were in deep trouble, and they were prepared through the intervention of Roosevelt to come to some sort of accommodation with a segment of the working class. At this moment, when you consider where we are, there is no segment of capital that is advocating that. I don't mean that there aren't individual capitalists. Of course there are. But I'm saying there's no significant segment of capital that is saying we've got to come to some sort of peace with the working class. Instead, what we find is one of two things: either ignoring us entirely or attempting to crush us. And the dominant paradigm coming out of the right wing is one of what I call the final offensive. That the right wing, through the Republican Party, corporate America, have concluded that this is the moment to take us out. And it's interesting, I was reading that great book, Collision Course, about the PATCO strike, and if you haven't read it, it really is a must-read book. And what struck me was that in 1981, contrary to many of the understandings that many of us have had about what happened in PATCO, Reagan was actually prepared to discuss wages, salaries, with the air traffic controllers, unprecedented in labor management relations at the federal sector level. And that in firing the PATCO workers, although the attempt was essentially to crush PATCO, it was not necessarily to crush all of organized labor, as much as that was the rhetoric that many of us had at the time. It was fundamentally to blunt organized labor, to weaken it significantly. Now, however, we're not dealing with forces that simply want to blunt organized labor. They seek an annihilation. It's a completely different ballgame. And yet, we have in our leaderships people that continue to think that we can somehow arrive at a new understanding, either through greater contributions to one party or the other, or through perhaps the proper rhetoric, or maybe through great television advertisements, maybe some experimentations, but not recognizing the gravity of the situation that we find ourselves in. And that is what I believe that the AFL-CIO, Change to Win, and others have to grapple with. How different the situation is from the 1930s. Second thing is that many of us that have been working to reform the union movement for so long have made a very, very fundamental mistake in the way that we've looked at this. Beginning in the late 1980s, at the time that Jobs with Justice was formed, and a number of unions were beginning to discuss attempting to respond to the crisis, a lot of the approach is what I call the gun rack approach. That is, it was going to the gun rack and picking out a gun that we thought would be useful, but it was not an analysis of what exactly we were up against and what kind of weaponry we actually needed in order to take on our opponents. And it was also not understanding something about when labor has been successful in the past, what have been some of the key characteristics. And there's one characteristic that we continue to ignore from the 1980s into the 1990s to today. We talk about different things, the vibrancy of the 1930s, yet we don't talk about a left. You know, we talk about mass mobilizations, but we don't talk about a left. You know, we talk about a great devotion of resources to organize, but we don't talk about a left. When you look in the 20th century, the moments when organized labor was at its best, it was somehow intertwined with a left. And certainly that was the case in the 1930s, when we had the Communist Party, socialists, Trotskyists, Mustites, and others that were really building this, but it wasn't just them. If you look at the 1960s and 1970s, the 1970s when we had the rise of a health and safety movement, that health and safety movement would never have emerged had it not been for the left. It didn't come out of people in colleges that just simply started studying it, but people that were in workplaces around the country, leftists who were there, not because they were paid to be there, but their organizing that helped to build that movement and make it what it ultimately became. When we're talking about the need to revitalize, one thing that I don't think was discussed at the AFL-CIO Executive Council was the need for a revitalized left. But it is up to us to be moving that discussion. It is up to us to recognize that without a left, without a force that really is talking about what is going on in the nature of the system, the labor movement simply will not be revitalized. Because part of what's at stake is vision, but part of what's at stake is also understanding the nature of our opponents. And that is one of the significant contributions that we on the left can offer. And to me, it's the fundamental source of hope. Without that left, all of the tactics, the idea of reform via tactics will simply fail. It is not enough. Because what we're up against is a system, as I said, that wants to eliminate us entirely. Our fight, therefore, in the immediate, needs to be a fight that really does go beyond much of what we've done in the past. I want you to think about this. This is something that's really troubled me. In the last 30 or so years, there's been countless struggles that have taken place, courageous struggles. Some we've won, some we've lost. The Watsonville Cannery, Hormel, Republic Windows, the Chicago teachers strike, right? Some we've won, some we've lost. Magnificent struggles, but they've not cascaded. They've not cascaded. After Republic Windows, I don't know whether you remember, but one of the things that I kept hearing is, now that workers have seized this factory and have shown that they could fight back and win, we will see this happening around the country, and it hasn't happened. And it's not because people are stupid. It's not because people are cowardly. Cascading is also very much related to something that we on the left can contribute. It's conveying lessons, it's summing up experiences. You see, people draw conclusions. They're going to draw all kinds of conclusions from various struggles, including ones that we win, that may not necessarily lead them to replicate those examples. They may look at Republic Windows and say, damn it, I'm glad they won. We'll never win that in San Francisco, right? Or damn it, the Chicago Teachers Union, boy, did they kick ass. That's never going to happen in Boston, right? And people will draw those conclusions. It really is where we need a left that is trying to tie these things together and helping other workers, worker activists draw these conclusions and understand that there are these amazing possibilities. But we need a level of organization, and we need the transformation of our union movement in order to make any of this possible. This is why this idea of the regeneration of the left is not an academic thing. It's not about the proliferation of papers. It's about organization, right? It's about organization. It's about fighting back. It's about tying things together with the objective of helping to cascade, create a cascade of these various struggles. So I was beginning to say this issue about what our immediate, it seems to me, what some of our immediate tasks are if we're going to revitalize our movement. And there is where this issue really comes down to the importance of fighting for power, a point that Fernando Gapasina and I raised in our book, Solidarity Divided. That there's an example that we make reference to in the book from Stamford, Connecticut, that I always like to reference, the Stamford Organizing Project, where what was really interesting about what was attempted in the late 90s and early 2000s was to, in effect, make unionization an economic development issue. In other words, that you're winning people to understand in the community that unionization wasn't simply about expressions of moral solidarity, but that unionization really was part of improving the living standard of the community. That the community, whether they were in unions or not, had a vested interest in the victory of the unions. That notion, working at a citywide level, at a countywide level, is something that we have to resuscitate. We also have to figure out ways of tying together organizations of working people to begin to envision what does it mean in our cities to have an agenda that is set by working people. What are our demands? What are the demands of working people? What needs to be done? And we can't allow those discussions to begin by accepting the constraints that the elite imposes upon us, that there is no money. There is plenty of money. We can't be allowed to be constrained by that. We have to go forward with what is the vision? What is it that working people need in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas, etc.? This would be a different kind of vision for our labor movement. And it would be a vision that I think could actually become a winning vision. Let me just add one final point, because I'm concerned about issues of time. That it has struck me that in the middle of the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, that there's no significant organizing of the unemployed. There's none. I mean, I don't mean that there aren't individual organizations, but that there's no force. I just want you to think back in terms of the 1930s. Almost immediately after the Depression started, the communists and the socialists and others began unemployed councils, we've had massive unemployment and underemployment. And yet there is no national force that has taken up this issue and said that we need to build a mass movement around jobs, a mass movement around quality jobs, a mass movement around different approaches to economic development. And so I'm hoping that when the AFL-CIO is looking for ideas, despite the fact that they've ignored the question of the unemployed for the most part, that there'll be somehow an epiphany, and that they will recognize that with millions of people unemployed, that it's the obligation, morally and strategically, for labor to take this question up. It needs to be based in central labor councils, in my opinion. It needs to be reinforced by the national AFL-CIO. Because, see, one of the things that history tells you in the from the 20th century is that there's really two groups that you don't want to leave alone in the middle of an economic crisis. One are veterans, the other is the unemployed. Now, when you leave those two groups alone in the middle of a crisis, that they become often very susceptible to the organizing by the other side, and particularly by right-wing populists or fascists and fascists. That therefore, it is up to us to move forward with a real program that speaks to the millions, and I'm not talking about the people that are simply cyclically unemployed. There's millions of structurally unemployed people, people who will never have permanent work, that our movement has, for all intents and purposes, abandoned. So we have these tasks, and it seems to me that organizations like Jobs with Justice are so essential at this moment. Because at the top, despite the rhetoric, and we've had marvelous rhetoric over the last number of years from the leadership of organized labor, probably virtually every president of every affiliate has, done some wonderful rhetoric in terms of their websites and their emails and everything else. But what we need is something else. We need audacity. I was reading this book, Patton on Leadership. Excuse me, like George S. Patton. No, seriously, I really recommend it. And there was this piece that actually came from the speech, and anyone that saw the film Patton remembers the speech that George C. Scott gives in the beginning, which actually, as it turns out, was an actual speech that Patton had given many times. And he said that he never wanted anyone calling in and saying, "We're holding on." He said, "The only thing I want you to hold on to is the enemy while you kick them in their ass. That we are to continue to move forward." And see, our movement never got that lesson. Right? It missed that page somehow. Right? What our movement believed was that after getting rid of the left in the late 1940s, that it could hold on. That it could hold on to what was won to a great extent because of the left. It could hold on to great victories. That it could hold on to a significant segment of the workforce, that it could hold on, and that this would go unchallenged. Patton had it. He understood exactly the point, that there is no holding on when you're involved in a life and death struggle. Unfortunately, too many of our leaders cease to understand that it was and remains a life and death struggle. So we don't hold on. Instead, we respond with audacity, and always audacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill. Wow. Anyone else still absorbing all of that? So, Bill just opened up for us with a pretty incisive analysis of what's going on in the world and some big charge to us as a movement of what we need to be doing differently. And we are really lucky today to have a panel of community organizers who are going to respond and share a little bit about the work they're doing at a local level, which actually starts going there, right, to see what does a different kind of labor movement look like. We're joined today by a panel including folks from the Our Walmart organization, organizing Walmart workers. That's Dominic. And we have Sofia Lopez with Poder. Economic Development and Worker Co-op Development in the Mission. We're joined by Mario Tamira and Professor Valerie Franco with the Filipino Community Center, who are organizing caregivers. And we're joined by Alicia Garza with Power, organizing Black and Brown communities. Here in San Francisco, and with a recent huge victory, winning free Muni for youth here. So each of these folks could probably speak for half an hour or more on the work that they're doing and how it relates to the themes that Bill just spoke of. But we've asked them to try to share highlights in 3 to 5 minutes, and they're asked to share a little bit about the work that they're doing, and also to share what lessons their work has, what cascading their local on-the-ground organizing could do and bring and offer to the rest of the movement here locally and around the country. So I'm going to turn the mic over to our first speaker. It's Dominic Ware with Our Walmart. He is, I just want to say, I met Dominic last year at the Black Friday protest in San Leandro, where he's a worker leader, and he is not only a worker and a leader and the son of a union leader, school teacher, but also a great poet. So some other time we'll get to hear him spit some rhymes too.
Good evening, my brothers and sisters. That's a hard act to follow up. Fletcher and Dredge. They had me puzzled for a minute, but I'm going to try to continue with what I have written. And pardon me if I stumble a little bit. I haven't spoken since the Black Friday last year, so I'm going to try to get through this the best way I can. I hope you guys don't mind if I skip the introduction. For I'm not here to speak on my own behalf, for my own. But I'm here to speak on behalf of the organization United for Respect at Walmart, or Walmart, an association of associates coming together to make change at Walmart and bring respect to the workers who use the Hello, My Name badge on a daily basis. We are 2 going on 3 years old with current and former employees, and our numbers are growing every day. The truth. Truth is often used to mean in accord with fact or reality. It's time for the people of this community to know the truth about the retail industry and its corrupt leader, Walmart. Walmart says it offers good jobs and competitive wages and benefits and opportunities to build a career. The truth, the average Walmart associate makes just $8.81 per hour, according to a study published by the Bloomberg News. An employee who works Walmart's definition of full-time, 34 hours per week, makes just over $15,000 per year. That means hundreds of thousands of people who work full-time at Walmart still live below the poverty line. And this is with dedicating your daily life to this job. You know, if you work for Walmart, you dedicate even your off days. When your first day off, you're recovering from the first week. The next day off, you're getting ready for the week ahead. So these people that dedicate their lives to Walmart, they still are living in poverty. I can spend all night showing you where Walmart lies, but I'd rather spend my few moments speaking on the truth and the heart of the matter, the employees. You know there's something wrong when over 70% of a job's workers and customers agree that the place where they shop and work has a terrible and hostile working environment and really don't enjoy being there. They only go because they have to. Walmart spends millions of dollars a year on advertisements, bribes, retaliation efforts, and cover-ups, but can't invest millions on upgrades to working conditions, salary increases, and affordable health care for the workers, making them those millions. Instead, they give us no respect, poverty wages, threats of retaliation, and an open door policy that is not only non-effective, but gives employees a false sense of power in the company. It's sad to see that Walmart tries to label someone who's speaking out and standing up for what's right as a disloyal, disgruntled associate. Walmart will seek to silence those who speak out on change, those asking for them to provide a better solution to a dysfunctional powerhouse that employs more than 1 million Americans alone and is number one in this field. Personally, I think it's something terribly wrong when a company will reward you for being a cheater and cheat you if you're a worker, or an associate, as they would say. The strike on Black Friday 2012 for me wasn't just a historical event, but it was a sign that I need to work harder than I've ever worked before and be the voice for my brothers and sisters who couldn't afford to be retaliated against. They tell us that if we do our job, we won't have anything to worry about. But I say to them, I don't look at this as a job. A job is something you can enjoy doing because it helps you move up in life. A job is something where you can have a solid future in if you put in the work. A job is something you're supposed to be proud of. A job with hard work and dedication one day can help you grab a slice of the American pie and you'll own your own property. But this, sad to say, this is not a job. I feel that it's a new age form of slave labor. Except this time it's not a skin color thing. It's a shirt color form of racism. Dark blue gotta fight, but the white says it's all right. It's a setback. That's why to move forward and help those being used, we must have a change. I tell you, it's not easy to stand up for truth and justice, especially when you tell the truth and take a stand and start having your peers look at you with disgust and unease. When you take the risk of losing the little income you have just to make a solid point for the truth and respect. You don't get paid for them hours you go on strike. And I don't get paid to speak the truth either. Well, at least not with money. Dr. King once said the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. There are times when silence is a form of betrayal. True compassion is more than handing out $1, more than listening to a person's problem, more than saying you agree with the cause. It's when you see your brother or sister walking with that cross, looking tired and run down. True compassion is when you decide to lift that cross with them and walk the same steps as if they were your own. Please don't get it twisted. I don't hate Walmart. I just love what Walmart could be more than what it is today. And with your help, the community, and the people of our great organization, I believe we can bring about that change and bring respect back to the working class. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dominic. And we're going to have time for questions and comments at the end. We're just going to finish with the rest of the panel. Just so folks know, the rest of the evening is that we'll have the rest of the panel speak. Bill's going to have a few minutes just to share some reflections and thoughts, because this is also he's also experiencing the panel alongside with us. And then we'll open it up for Q&A with everybody. Okay? So can I actually ask, can you guys grab that mic? And if it starts messing up, we'll switch again. Yeah. So next up, can we all welcome Sofia Lopez? She's a member leader of Poder, and they've been really working on how to revitalize the economic development in their community and draw from the resources that our community and the resilience of our communities. Okay, actually turn that mic off. Sorry. Okay, so let's give it for Sofia.
Sí, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Sofía López, como ya lo escuchamos.
Good evening. My name is Sofia Lopez, as you heard.
Pertenezco al grupo Poder y ahorita estamos luchando como comunidad. Trabajé 5 años para un restaurante y en ese restaurante pude aprender y asimilar un poco de lo que es comida, pero soy originaria de Antigua Guatemala.
I'm a member of Poder, and for 5 years I worked at a restaurant where I learned about making food, and but separately I'm a descendant of ancient Guatemala.
Ya. Pero mi lucha fue muy dura. Luché contra la discriminación porque mi inglés es muy corto.
But it was a very hard struggle. I struggled against discrimination because my English is very short.
Y también pasé muchos abusos laborales, en el sentido de que me hacían trabajar más de las 8 horas y no podía yo, trabajaba a overtime y el overtime nunca fue pagado para mi persona.
I faced a lot of struggles also in labor-wise. I used to work, they would make you work more than 8 hours a day, and make me work overtime, but I would not get paid for it.
Entonces, nosotros como comunidad latina, a mí me ha dolido mucho que mis compañeros y mi raza latina, tanto como yo sufrí, también han sufrido ellos. Poder, la institución nos ha dado un apoyo y nos ha dado cómo apoyarnos, en el sentido de que como latinos nos unamos, y hoy fue nuestro primer triunfo que nosotros pudimos estamos tratando de organizar la cooperativa de comidas entre personas latinas y mis compañeros.
So, sorry, and it's very hurtful to see my neighbors, my comrades, people from my Latino community also suffering the same abuses. And with Poder, we've been working to create one of our current campaigns, and one of our victories is creating a cooperative, a food co-op within people in our community so that we can share Latino food within the Latino community.
A mí me duele tanto que nosotros suframos, porque a veces nosotros venimos buscando el sueño americano, venimos buscando el ganar el sustento para nuestros hijos que se han quedado, para nuestra familia que se ha quedado con una esperanza que nosotros les podemos alimentar desde aquí. Entonces,
and it's really sad to see the abuses that our people have to go through. We're trying to look for the American dream, a piece of the dream, and for us just to be able to earn enough to be able to sustain our families and our children.
Entonces nosotros hoy, con el apoyo de otros compañeros, hemos tratado la manera de sembrar, poner una semillita para que nosotros, esta cooperativa, se haga en grande. Vamos a luchar para que todos aquellos, nuestros compañeros latinos que vienen atrás de nosotros y que quieren tener un salario digno y que quieren tener su media hora de break, como a mí me lo hacían, me decían: poncha tu hora de break, pero no la descanses, come nomás así rapidito y vuelva otra vez al trabajo, y eso no es justo.
Y ese tipo de... Oh, sorry. All right, all you guys who are bilingual get what just happened. All right, awesome. All right, and also the type of support, the support that we're getting for Poder to be able to plant these seeds for this cooperative, to be able to grow bigger, to provide for all of our Latino community, and so that we can struggle as a Latino community, for the people that are going to come after us, for people who want to be able to get a just wage, to be able to get an actual half-hour break. In my case, when I would have a break, they would tell me, you can punch out on your break, but you cannot rest. You have to keep working.
Pues por eso es que ahora nos hemos unido un grupo de personas latinas para poner nuestro restaurante, que hoy fue nuestra el día que ya trabajamos unidos, y están invitados todos ustedes, tienen el 10% de descuento, van a probar nuestra comida, van a probar nuestras quesadillas, nuestras tortillas hechas a la mano con mucho amor. Ahí vamos a estar en la 2341 Folsom. y para todos vamos a trabajar orgullosamente, y para que aquellos que vienen en busca de mira y de un buen trato y de un buen salario, vamos a trabajar y luchar para que eso se nos dé y que se nos respete como latinos, y todo lo que derechos que podamos tener y darlo a las personas que vienen atrás de nosotros. Vamos a luchar por nuestros compañeros. El trato que a mí me dieron no se los vamos a dar a ellos. Queremos un mejor trato para todos los que vienen buscando un porvenir, una nueva luz, algo para poder alimentar a su familia que se han quedado en sus países. Gracias, muchas gracias. Y el apoyo de ustedes pensamos que lo vamos a
And now that we have, we've come united to open up our restaurant, to open up our restaurant. Today our first day that we're actually opened, and that we were working together. You're all welcome to come to our restaurant. Everybody gets a 10% discount. You can taste our quesadillas, our tortillas made by hand. We're at 2341 Folsom. We're going to create work for everyone. Everyone who's looking for rights, everybody who's looking for a just salary and respect. We're going to fight for our comrades, because it's not going to be, because how I was treated is not how other people are going to be treated. We're going to be the light who's going to help them feed their families here, and also feed their families back in their country.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So we have two more amazing, inspiring panelists to go. Next, I want to invite Mario Demira and Valerie Franco to share about some really groundbreaking work they're doing to build not only organizing among caregivers in the Bay Area, but to build a worker organization that's connected internationally. So let's give it up for Mario and Valerie.
Hi everybody, how's everybody doing tonight? I just want to say thank you for having us here. Thank you, Jobs with Justice. It's a big honor to be on this panel with Bill Fletcher. I just want to give a shout out for the piece he wrote in February about black solidarity, and the Bill Fagan lieutenant who is a soldier in the Philippine-American War who defected to join the Philippine guerrillas in their fight for independence. And I just want to highlight that, and I appreciate that essay. So my name is Mario Demira. I work at the Filipino Community Center. We're a service-based organization in the Excelsior District. We serve low-income working-class families, primarily recent immigrant Filipinos in our city. But I'm just going to kind of briefly tell you how, through our partnership with other organizations, we were able to develop a grassroots Filipino migrant worker organization entitled Migrante in Northern California. Sorry, I gotta wear this shirt. So at the Filipino Community Center, we provide services. We have a workers' rights program. And for the last couple of years, we were meeting with a lot of Filipino caregivers, mostly undocumented workers, all low-wage workers, and we were dealing with their workers' rights issues, primarily wage theft. And so we would refer a lot of their cases out to the different labor enforcement agencies, shout out to OLSC in the back, and also the state agencies. And we would do these things, but after a while, the issues wouldn't go away. The problems wouldn't go away. Wage theft wasn't going away. The exploitation of these migrant workers wasn't going away. So over time, we were meeting with workers, we were giving them know your rights trainings and this and that. But we realized we needed to do more. And to do more, we realized that we couldn't move without having the workers move us. So we started this thing last year called the Caregiver Research Project, which was a participatory research project that was helped with Professor Valerie Francisco from Gabriela USA and some other folks. We were able to get the community and the workers all united to get behind this research project to not only learn about the conditions of Filipino migrant workers in terms of the work conditions, but the social realities, their migration stories, and everything that encompasses their lives as migrant workers. And in this process, in this year-long process of doing trainings and getting advocates involved and getting students from the universities involved and getting students in the local high schools involved and getting women's organizations involved and getting workers primarily involved, we were able to see that really led by the workers, they wanted their own grassroots organization that they could lead, that could exist with or without us this nonprofit institution. And that was a model that we decided to go forward with, and the workers decided to go forward with. And so in December of 2012, we launched Migrante Northern California, which is part of Migrante International, which is a National Democratic Filipino Migrant Workers Organization. And Valerie will kind of break down a little bit more about what Migrante International represents.
So I think important to note about Migrante and the grassroots kind of building migrant worker power that we've been witnessing and been honored to take part on is the analysis that a lot of the workers taught us and we united on as an organization begins with a story about U.S. imperialism and the war and plunder really of what Bill is talking about, a global economic crisis that forces migrants to leave their countries. I think that that's an important thing an aspect of what the revitalization of the left also has to consider is that the caregivers here face particular working conditions like wage theft, undocumentation, exploitation because of their illegalization in this country. But that first begins with the landlessness, the poverty, militarization, and economic intervention that happens in the countries that they're forced to leave. And I think that that's an important contextual factor that we have to really deal with in revitalizing the new left. I think the second thing is we also have to realize that there is collusive empire happening. The Philippines has the labor export policy that basically brokers or, colloquially pimps their citizens all over the world to get over $19 billion in remittances to really be a basic part of the national economy in the Philippines. They refuse to do any type of national industrialization and development in the country because they understand that the cash cow is the migrant citizens. And when Filipino migrants come here to the U.S., I think what they're faced with is this, not even, that the immigration system, it's not broken, but it's set up to illegalize many migrants, and the immigration system here depends on the sort of low-wage, precarious, unstable labor that undocumented immigrant workers sort of give to this country. And I think that those kinds of analysis about what the structural problems are that's facing our communities across borders, across cultural and racial lines, I think those are maybe helpful sort of points of unity that we can build across as we're considering how to sort of what Bill was talking about, maybe counter the final offensive that the right is sort of exacting on the movement here in the U.S. Thank you.
Last but not least, Alicia Garza from Power.
This is a little bit overwhelming. How y'all doing? So we were asked to talk a little bit about the Black organizing work that we're doing, so I want to focus on that, but I want to